tell you about some important points of Harappan civilization. Harappan civilization is from Unit 5 of BHIC 131, which is the first and the very first settled civilization of our ancient period. The name of our Unit 5 is Harappan Civilization. Yes, we are going to start Harappan Civilization. We will cover some important contents in this chapter like introduction, old city, how old city discovered, how the age of Harappan civilization is excavated, why it is called Harappan civilization, and so on. These are the important contents which we cover in this chapter. Next, the objectives of this chapter we will cover. We will go to learn about this, the objectives. Objectives are just like Harappan civilization was discovered, chronology determined, village communities, geographical spread, problems faced by scholars, and the theories put forward for the decline of Harappan civilization, and so on. We will cover these objectives also, and after finishing this chapter, we will able to learn about these objectives. First of all, we will start introduction of Harappan civilization. In the previous unit, you learned about evolution of mankind from hunting-gathering societies to agricultural societies. Invention of agriculture led to far-reaching changes in human societies. One important result was the emergence of cities and civilization. How the emergence of cities and civilizations settled down at that time. In this unit, you will be familiar with the birth of one such civilization named Harappan civilization. How the disappearance of various aspects of its maturity, its writing, town planning, etc. In this chapter, we will read about these mysteries. Next, an old city is discovered. Very old city was discovered at that time. That city named Harappa. In 1826, an Englishman, Charles Mason, visited a village named Harappa. Harappa is in western Punjab, now that is in Pakistan. He noted the remarkable high walls and towers of a very old settlement. He believed that this city belonged to times of Alexander. In 1872, a famous archaeologist, Sir Alexander Cunningham, came to this place. The people of surrounding areas told him that the high mounds of Harappa were parts of a 1,000 years old city. It had been ruined because of the wickedness of the king. Cunningham collected some archaeological objects from this site, but he could not determine to which period of history they really belong. He simply believed that these objects were probably from outside India. He concurred with the opinion of the village of people of the village that the city was about 1,000 years old. In 1924, when another archaeologist, Sir John Marshall, reported about Harappa, he talked about the discovery of a long forgotten civilization, which was as old as the civilization of Egypt and Mesopotamia. Is it not curious? The people of surrounding regions were indifferent to the remains of the city. Then a British archaeologist came and informed us that the city was about 5,000 years old. How could the people and the scholars from such different ideas What could be their methods of dating an old site? Now, the age of Harappan civilization, as the Cunningham confusion, as Sir John Marshall's excavation, and after that, how will the archaeologists excavate about the Harappan civilization. Archaeologists use various methods for finding out how old various settlements are. Let us see how Marshall conclude that the Harappan civilization was about 5,000 years old and not 1,000 years old, as believed by Cunningham. Marshall found that ceilings, Harappan script, works of art found in Harappa were totally different from those with which scholars were already familiar and which belonged to a much later period. Similar finds were reported in another place called Mohenjo-daro in Sindh. These were the two famous cities of Indus Valley civilization was Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. Harappa, West Punjab, which is in Pakistan nowadays. Mohenjo-daro in Sindh. In Mohenjo-daro, the settlement lay underneath a Buddhist monastery belonging to the Kushana dynasty, Kushana period. It has been found that in ancient times, if a house was destroyed for some reason, people would generally use the brick or the mud of the house to prepare a plinth and make another house on top of it. If an archaeologist excavate an area and find remains of a house beneath another house, he can figure out that the one below is older than the one above. One below is older than the one above. That is why the deeper he digs, the earlier he moves in time scale. Thus, Marshall could find out that the houses below the Buddhist monastery must have been older than the Kushan period. There was the evidence that people living in these settlements did not know the use of iron. This means that these cities were part of an age when iron was unknown. Iron came in the use of in the beginning of second millennium BCE. When Marshall published his discoveries, some other archaeologists found objects similar to those found at Harappa and Mohenjo-daro in Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia is also connected with Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. Now, why it is called the Harappan civilization? Some archaeologists called Indus Valley civilization. Some called Harappan civilization. Beginning with the discovery of Harappa, nearly 1,000 settlements having similar traits have been discovered. Scholars named it the Indus Valley civilization because initially most of the settlements were discovered in the plains of Indus and its tributaries. Archaeologists have found the remains from where? In the plains of Indus and its tributaries also. Archaeologists prefer to call it Harappan civilization because in archaeology there is a convention that when an ancient culture is described, it is named after the modern name of the site which first revealed the existence of the nature. We do not know what those people called themselves because we have not been able to read their writing, their script. We call them Harappans after the modern place Harappa, where the evidence of the forgotten civilization was first underneath in our times. Firstly, we discovered the dead remains, the remains from that site, from Harappa. Antecedents of Harappan civilization. When we use the term Harappan civilization, we are referring to a large number of cities, towns, villages which flourished in circa 3rd century, 3rd millennium BCE. These cities and villages had formed a network of interaction over a large geographical space which would roughly cover the areas of modern day Rajasthan, Punjab, Gujarat, Pakistan, and some of the surrounding areas. If we study the remains left by the people who lived in these areas before the emergence of Harappan civilization, we can have some idea of how Harappan cities emerged. Scholars believed that there was a time in human past when cities did not exist and people lived in small villages. One might ask what the ancestors of Harappans were doing before they built up these cities. What were they doing before they built up these cities? There are evidences to suggest that the forefathers of Harappans were living in villages, were living in small towns. Some of them were engaged in pastoral nomadic activities. Yes, and some went in for trade. Some were involved themselves in small villages. Some were involved themselves in nomadic activities, pastoral nomadic activities, just like they have their cattle and they move their cattle from one place to another in search of fodder. And some went in for the trade. They trade with another countries, just like Oman, etc. The Harappan civilization represents the culmination of a long period of evolution of agriculture, semi-nomadic communities. So, let us review the prehistory of Harappan civilization. First of all, before studying about Harappan civilization, we will study about the geographical features of Harappan civilization, how the geography is evaluated. The areas of present-day Pakistan and northwestern India formed the core region of Harappan civilization. Present-day Pakistan and northwestern India. These areas are characterized by dry weather, scanty rainfall. There are some important variations among these areas, whereas the areas of Punjab and Sindh are dominated by alluvial plains of Indus River. Areas of Balochistan are characterized by steep, craggy hills. In northeastern Balochistan Valley, floors might provide some possibilities of agriculture, might provide some possibilities of agriculture. These areas has been inhabited by another set of people also, namely pastoral nomads, who with their herds of sheep, goat, cattle kept shifting from uplands to lowlands in search of pastures for their herd, in search of green grass, in search of fodder for their cattle. The areas of these boundaries, the areas of the borderlands, just like east, west, north, south, which cut out into the Indus plains, are a continuation of eastern Iranian plateau. These hilly regions are fractured by many passes like Khyber, Gomal, Bolan, which have acted as highways of traffic for nomads, merchants, warriors, various groups of people. The interaction among the population of uplands of Balochistan and the plains of Indus, and on the one hand, and the communities of Iran on the other hand, seems to be related to this geographical feature. The similarities in climate and landscape of Harappan civilization and those of Iran, Iraq, borderlands had led scholars to hypothesize that agricultural communities must have emerged in these areas in roughly the same period. In Iran, Iraq, agriculture began around 8000 BC. Now, origins of agriculture and settled villages. Because We have studied about hunter-gatherer societies. We have studied about pastoral communities. Now we are going to study about settled villages, how they settle their villages, how they settle their homes at a particular city. The earliest evidence of emergence of agriculture communities comes from a place called Bihargarh near the Bolan Pass in the Balochistan province of Pakistan. Beginning as a seasonal camp, the place turned into a settled village in 5th century BCE. People at this place were growing wheat, barley, cotton, dates, tending sheep, goat, and cattle. Mehergarh is located at the place where alluvial plains of Indus join the uneven hilly plateau of Indo-Iranian borderland. People of Mehergarh lived in mud houses, which could sometimes have 5 to 6 rooms. Mud houses, which could sometimes have 5 to 6 rooms. By the middle of 3rd millennium BCE, many small and large villages had sprung up around the Indus, Balochistan, Afghanistan area. The better known settlements among them are Kili Gul Muhammad in Balochistan and Mundigab of Afghanistan. In Indus floodplains, villages like Jalilpur near Harappa had came into existence. Once these agriculturists learned to exploit the highly fertile floodplains of the Indus, there was a sudden expansion in size and numbers of villages. These agriculturists gradually learned to exploit the Indus plains and control the flooding of Indus. Richer returns per acre resulted in large surplus. These led to an increase in number of settlements in Sindh, Rajasthan, Balochistan, and other areas. The interaction with these groups seems to have helped agriculturists exploit resources from other regions. As the pastoral nomads are known to engage in trading activities over the areas they covered during their travels. All this led to development of small towns. The period of this new development is called early Harappan period because of uncertain uniformities found all over India. The famous river of Indus Valley civilization was Indus River. Early Harappan period. We will review the condition of some of the settlements just before the emergence of Harappan civilization. Many scholars call this period early Harappan period because they believe that this was the formative epoch of Harappan civilization when certain trends of cultural unification are perceptible. Next is southern Afghanistan. Afghanistan and the part is southern. In southern Afghanistan, there is a place called Mundiga. It seems to have been located on a trade route. That is why, in the early Indus period, the inhabitants of this place were using artifacts which show affinities with some Iranian towns on the one hand and some Balochistan towns on the other, making a humble picnic as a camping site of some nomadic groups. The place grew into a township of impressive proportions. There is evidence of a defensive wall with square bastions of sun-dried bricks, a large building with row of pillars has been identified as a palace. Archaeologists had found a big palace, a big hall, a palace type of room with several pillars. Another large structure looks like a temple. Variety of potteries has been discovered at this place. They were using Naturalistic decorations showing birds, ibex, bull, and people trees. Terracotta female figurines, similar to those found at contemporary sites in Balochistan, have also been found. They were also using bronze shaft hole axes and edges. Such semi-precious stones as lapis lazuli, statite show their contacts with Iran, Central Asia, etc. Quetta Valley. To the southeast of Mundiga is Quetta Valley, or in a place called Dam Sadar, large houses having brick walls belong to beginning of 3rd millennium BCE has been discovered, same as previously. Varieties of painting, properties, potteries, similar to those of Mundiga. These people were using clay seals, copper objects. These discoveries indicate the presence of a prosperous community which had solved its food problem and established trading contacts with regions far away. Central and southern Balochistan. In central and southern Balochistan, sites like Anjira, Togao, Nindovari, Balakot, these cities give us some idea of early Harappan societies. Early Harappan societies is not that much important as the mature Harappan sites are important. But if we are going to study about Harappan civilization, then we will study about early Harappan civilization also. Like early Harappan cities, early Harappan societies are the basic of this chapter. If we will study about the basic of this chapter, then we will study, then we are successfully learn about Harappan civilization, mature Harappan civilization. Many of the South's sites in this area show evidences of contact with Persian Gulf. In Balakot, the people who first inhabited the place were using potteries, similar to those used in other contemporary villages in Pakistan. They all use potteries. How they use their pots? They use their pots for cooking food, for eating food, okay, and they use potteries. However, in course of time, they started using potteries similar to the ones used in Indus alluvial plain. What is important to us is that people of entire Balochistan province were using similar kind of pottery. They show distinct influences from Persian Gulf towns on the one hand and from Indus Valley towns. On the other hand, they were using motif of their pottery like humped bull and people which continue into the mature Harappan phase. The Indus area by the middle of 4th millennium BCE. Earlier we have discussed about 3rd millennium BCE. Now we are going to discuss about middle of 4th millennium BCE. The Indus alluvial plains became the focal point of change. Many small and large settlements came into existence on the banks of Indus and Gagar Hakra. Gagar Hakra is also the name of a river which were flowing at that time also. This area became the core region of Harappan civilization. In the present discussion, we shall try to show how those developments anticipate many of the characteristics of Harappan civilization. Amri. Amri is also the place we found from Harappan civilization. From Sindh. The Sindh province corresponding to the lower Indus plains showed interesting development. At the site of Amri, the inhabitants show people living in houses of stone, houses of mud brick. They had constructed some kind of a granary also, granary where we kept the grains. a big hall where we kept the grains. They painted such animal motifs as the humped Indian bulls on their pottery. This motif was very popular during the mature Harappan phase. They were using wheel made pottery. Wheel made pottery. You have seen in there were Pratapgarh also, okay, where the students go from school and they used to make pottery with the help of that wheel. Similar finds have been reported at places like Tharo, Kodras, Buthi. They had fortified their settlements before the coming of Harappan civilization. Next is Kotadiji. These are the cities we found from Harappan Valley civilization. They connected with Harappan civilization. Opposite Mohenjo-daro on the left bank of Indus is the site of Kotadiji. Left bank of Indus. The people living here in early Harappan period had a massive defensive wall built around their settlement. Where they lived, they made massive defensive wall to protect themselves. This kind of pottery has been reported from pre-Harappan habitations in far-flung places like Kalibangan in Rajasthan, Mehergarh in Balochistan. The Kot Gigi variety of pottery has been found along the entire stretch of Indus, where settlements belong to pre-urban and urban phase of Harappan civilization have been reported. Next, it is also anticipate the process of convergence of cultures seen in Harappan civilization. Convergence of cultures. Many of designs on pottery were carried over to urban phase. At the same time, certain other earthen vessels showed similarly with those of Mundiga. This show enlarged interaction sphere of early Harappan sites. In Mohenjo-daro itself, archaeologists have discovered occupation deposit to a depth of 39 feet below the modern level of the plain. Similarly, at Chanudaro, early Harappan habitation has been reported. Chanudaro is also the name of the city, okay, of Indus Valley civilization. At Mohenjo-daro, the early level could not be excavated, but many archaeologists believe that these occupation levels represented an early Harappan culture, probably similar to that of Kotdiji. Next is Mehergarh. Earlier we talked about site of Mehergarh. In the period preceding Harappan urbanization, the people of Mehergarh had established a prosperous township. Mehergarh people. They used to make various kinds of beads of stone. Lapis lazuli, one of the precious stone used by them, is found only in Badakhshan, region of Central Asia. Many sealings have been reported. Seals are used as a mark of authority in situations of interpersonal exchange. If we are going for some trade purpose, then we have some gold coins or some coins to trade for that particular object. Then we use seal. Then we use seal for the authenticity, for the authority in situation of impersonal exchange. Mehergarh seals were probably used by merchants for guaranteeing the quality of goods that were being sent to faraway lands. Similarities in the design of pottery, terracotta figurines, objects of copper, stone indicate that these people were in close contact with neighboring towns of Iran. Yes, that was the main use of the seal. Rahman Dairy. If we follow Indus northwards, we come across some more settlements which give us an idea of how people lived in early Harappan settlements. At a place called Rahman Dairy, an early Indus township has been excavated, oblong in shape with houses streets, lanes laid out in planned fashion. It is protected by a massive wall. Here too, beads of turquoise, lapis lazuli have been found. This shows their contact with Central Asia. Contact with Central Asia. Next, Tarkai Kila. Next is Punjab, Bawalpur. Next is Kalimangan, which is situated in North Rajasthan. What was the weather of that time? Is in Indus Valley civilization, the dry weather held in Harappan settlements. Emergence of the Harappan civilization. These were the cities we have studied about. We have studied about of Indus Valley civilization. Punjab, Bawalpur, Kalibangan, Tarkai Kila, Rehman Deri, Mehergarh, and Kot Diji, Amri, Tanudaro, Lothal, Dholavira, okay, which Rakhi Gadi also, which we have found in excavation, that these were the cities of Harappan Valley civilization, which we will study about these in depth. Emergence of Harappan civilization. In the backdrop of these process of technological, ideological unification emerged in Harappan civilization. The particular mechanism of the birth of civilization are obscure because we have not read their script and many more excavations need to be carried out. Some of the general process have been outlined above because we have not studied about the script of Indus Valley civilization. Have you seen the picture of script of Harappan Valley civilization? No. In NCRTs, it is generally given the script of Indus Valley civilization. There are some picture like and some written portion also. But with the help of the picture like pictures, we have studied about that this should was also held there. Only that things which we have studied about Harappan Valley civilization. This created the possibilities for larger surplus. It would also lead to an increase in population. At the same time, trading contacts would be established with distant communities by richer section of society who would like to possess precious commodities. The large surplus would also permit the elaboration of non-farming specialization. That is how the village priest could become a part of a clan of the priest spread over the entire region. Clan is, we can contribute this clan is in Kunba. Similar process will occur in the case of metallurgists, potters, craftsmen. In villages, small cellars for keeping grains would be transformed into elaborate granaries. The existence of umpteen agricultural groups, pastoral nomadic communities in close contact with each other. How they get close contact with each other? Agricultural groups and pastoral nomadics. They contribute themselves with the help of exchange one another things. By this, once the agriculturists had become prosperous, they would attract other groups which might be less fortunate. The pastoral nomads are known to engage in trading and looting, depending on their own economic condition. Agricultural communities too could fight with each other for the control of more fertile lands of land. Probably that is the reason why some of communities surrounding themselves with a defensive wall. We know that at the time of emergence of Harappan civilization, many sites like Kotdiji, Kalibangan were destroyed by fire. We do not know the reasons behind this. They could simply be accidental also. What seems more plausible is the fact that among the various competent communities in the Indus region, one set of people established their power over others. These are the political things which they run with each other. Decline of Harappan civilization. Archaeological evidence. There were so many evidence by which we conclude that the Harappan civilization was getting downfall at that time with the help of so many evidences. Just like we have seen that floods were there. We have seen that with the help of evidence, with the help of decays, with the help of remains which archaeologists excavate from that particular places, just like floods, earthquake, natural disasters, and the river dried up, and the river changed its way from there to there. That were the some important reasons by which we conclude the decline of Harappan civilization. Cities like Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, Kalibangan experienced gradual decline in urban planning and construction. House made of old dilapidated bricks and shoddy construction encroached upon the broad streets of towns. Flimsy partitions subdivided the courtyards of houses. Courtyards, which means angan of that particular houses. The cities were fast turning into slums. A detailed study of architecture of Mohenjo-daro shows that many entry points of Great Bath were blocked. Great Bath, you have listened about the Great Bath. Great Bath will exist in Mohenjo-daro. We have seen a lot of evidences of Great Bath in NCRTs also. If we will study, if we will study some important things just like UPSC level, okay, then the tutors or the coaching institutions have also uh, decide that we should read more and more NCRT for the basic things of this history. From NCRTs, we have seen the evidence. We have seen the evidence of Mohenjo-daro, the Great Bath, the rectangular tank by which uh, they used to take bath. Just like we went to Haridwar, we went to Varanasi for the Great Bath, for the religious bath. They went to the Great Bath, to Mohenjo-daro. Mohenjo-daro was the upper town of that time. The society has divided the population into two parts, citadel and the lower town. Yes, sometimes later the Great Bath and greenery fell into total disuse. At the same time, the late levels at Mohenjo-daro showed a distinct reduction in the number of sculptures, figurines, beads, bangles, inlay works. Towards the end, the city of Mohenjo-daro shrank to a small settlement of 3 hectares from the original 85 hectares. Previously, we said that 85 hectares land which was occupied by the Mohenjo-daro, which shrank from 85 to 3 hectares. That is very reduction of that time. Before its abandonment, Harappa seemed to have witnessed the arrival of a group of people about whom we know through their burial practices. Burial practices means by which they bury the dead bodies to a funeral grave. Okay, then with the excavation of that burial system, with the excavation of that dead body of the grave, that we came to know about the burial system of that Harappan civilization, how they divide their societies, how they live in a social place. They were using a pottery which was different from those of Harappans. Their culture is known as cemetery etch culture, processed by decline were in evidence also in places like Kalibangan and Chanudar. We find that buildings associated with power and ideology were decaying and goods related to display of prestige, splendor were becoming increasingly scarce. Later on, cities like Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. Theories of sudden decline. In the earlier classes, we have discussed about some important things about Harappan civilization, just like upper town, lower town, and Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, and Dayaram Sahni also, who excavated Harappa. Rakhal Das Banerjee, who excavated Mohenjo-daro in 1921 and 1922. We have studied about Alexander Cunningham. He thought that our Indus Valley civilization was excavated in 5,000 years ago. But it was a confusion of that Cunningham. There were so many other timings by which we conclude it about the timings. Yes, the theories of sudden decline. How, as to why did the civilization end? Some scholars, believing in dramatic collapse of this civilization, have looked for evidences of a calamity of catastrophic proportions which wiped out the urban communities. Some of the more plausible theories for the decline of Harappan civilizations are: number one, it was destroyed by massive floods. It is also said that it was destroyed by a massive floods. The floods came into Indus River, and the people who lived near Indus Valley civilization, near Indus River, they moved from that place to another place. Some moved from that place to another place, and some destroyed with the massive floods. Next is decline took place because of the shift of course of rivers and the gradual drying up of Ghaggar Hakra river system. Some archaeologists, some historians think that because of the shift in course of rivers, as river is flowing in this direction and river is flowing in this direction, in east direction, then after some natural issues, the river start to flow in that direction, and the people who lived in this direction, then they moved that place to another places. That is also the reason of decline of Indus Valley civilization. This was the reason, shift in the course of rivers. Next is gradual drying up of Ghaggar Hakra river. Dry up of river. Which river? Ghaggar Hakra rivers. Okay, when there is no water in the particular river, then why? How will they survive? How will the people of that particular place survive at that time? That is not a survival system. They move from that place to another place for their survival. Next is barbarian invaders destroyed the cities. Barbarian invaders means hunter-gatherer societies, means some tribal peoples came to that particular place and they destroyed the cities, just like Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, Kalibangan, Chanudaro. They destroyed their cities. And when they destroyed their cities, the people of that cities moved that place to another place. They flee out. Next is growing demands of the center's distance. Growing demands of centers. Now we will start floods and earthquakes. Among the causes spelled out for the decline of Harappan civilization, scholars have used evidence of floods in Mohenjo-daro. It appears from the records of principal excavation. Mohenjo-daro various periods of occupation were separated by evidences of deep flooding that be inferred from the fact that the houses and streets of Mohenjo-daro were covered with silt, collapsed building material many times in its long history. Yes, this is the floods and earthquakes, which some archaeologists think that floods will come at that time, earthquakes or any natural disaster came at that time, occur at that time. And that is the main reason for the decline of Harappan civilization. Some scholars used to think like this. Rake's hypothesis. The theory of catastrophic flooding has been carried further by a famous hydrologist R.L. Rakes. He argued that such flooding, which could drown building 30 feet above the ground level of the settlement, could not be the result of normal flooding in the Indus. He believes that Harappan civilization declined because catastrophic flooding causing prolonged submergence of cities located on the bank of Indus. He has shown that the geomorphologically speaking, the Indus area is a disturbed seismic zone. Earthquakes might have raised the level of flood plains of the lower Indus. This uplift of the plain along an axis roughly at right angles to that of the Indus blocked the passage of river water to sea. This led to the ponding of waters of Indus. A lake was formed in the area where cities of the Indus had once flourished, and thus the rising water level of the river swallowed up and the cities like Mohenjo-daro drowned. It has been pointed out that sites like Suttagedor, okay, Suttako on the Makaran coast, Balakot near Karachi were seaports of Harappans. At present, they are located far away from seacoast. This has happened because of the upliftment of the land and sea coast possibly caused by violent tectonic uplift which some scholars believed took place somewhere in the second millennium BCE. These violent earthquakes, damming rivers and burning the towns destroyed the Harappan civilization. This led to the disruption of commercial life based on river and coastal communication. Now, if some historians were using the point of view of the decline of Harappan Valley civilization, and some another historians used to criticize that particular historians. That is the criticism which we study about this. This grand theory of catastrophic fall of Harappan civilization is not accepted by some scholars. H.T. Lambrick points out that the idea that a river would be dammed in such a manner, even by tectonic uplift, is incorrect due to two reasons. Even if an earthquake artificially raised a bund downstream, the large volume of water from the Indus would easily breach it. In recent times in Sindh, a swell of ground raised by the earthquake of 1890 was breached by the first flood. It phased from one to smaller streams of the Indus called Nara. Silt deposition would parallel the rising surface of water in hypothetical lake. It would take place along the bottom of the former course of the river. Thus, the silt of Mohenjo-daro might not be the deposition of a flood. Another criticism of this theory is that it fails to explain the decline of settlement outside the Indus system, the shifting away of Indus. Lambrick, that is also archaeologist, Lambrick has offered his own explanation for the decline. He believes that changes in the course of Indus could be the cause of destruction of Mohenjo-daro. Changes in the course of Indus. Indus is flowing in this side, Then Indus changed its route. That is also the main reason for the destruction of Mohenjo-daro. The Indus is an unstable river system which keeps shifting its bed. Apparently, it shifted about 20-30 miles away from Mohenjo-daro. Shifted about 30 miles away from Mohenjo-daro. The people of the city and the surrounding food production villages deserted the area because they were starved of water. They have lack of water. This kind of thing happened many times in the history of Mohenjo-daro. The silt observed in the city is actually the product of wind action, blowing in lots of sand and silt. This theory too cannot explain the decline of Harappan civilization totality. At best, it can explain the desertion of Mohenjo-daro. How the Mohenjo-daro was deserted at that time with the change course of Indus River. If the people of Mohenjo-daro were familiar with those kind of shift in the river course, why could not they themselves shift to some new settlement and establish another city like Mohenjo-daro? Obviously, it appears that some other factors were at work. Some other factors just like increased aridity and drying up of Ghaggar river, increasing in arid and drying up of Ghaggar. B.P. Agarwal and Sood have introduced a new theory of decline of Harappan civilization. They believe that the Harappan civilization declined because of the increasing aridity of this area and drying up of Ghaggar Hakra river. Basing their conclusion on the studies conducted in the USA, Australia, and Rajasthan, they have shown that there was an increase in arid condition by the middle of second millennium BCE. In semi-arid regions like those of Harappa, even a minor reduction in moisture, water availability could spell disaster. It would affect agricultural production, which in turn would put the city economies under stress. That is also the reason which was given by the Dr. D.P. Agrawal and Sood. They uh, they take the theories from Rajasthan and they take theories. They give the theories in USA, in Australia also. That is also the reason behind the decline of Indus Valley civilization. Barbarian invasions. R.E.M. Wheeler believed that the Harappan civilization was destroyed by Aryan invaders. Aryan invaders. It has been pointed out that in the late phases of occupation at Mohenjo-daro, there are evidence of a massacre. Human skeletons have been found laying on streets. The Rigveda time and again refers to the fortress of the Dasas and Dasyus. Das and Dasyus. It is written in Rigveda time. The Vedic god Indra is called Purandar, meaning the destroyers of forts. The geographical area of habitation of Rigvedic Aryans, including Punjab, Gagar Hakra regions. Since there are no remains of other cultural groups having forts in this area in historical phase, Wheeler believed that it is the Harappan cities that were being described in Rigveda also. In fact, the Rigveda mentioned a place called Hariupriya. Hariupriya. This place was located on the bank of Ravi. The Aryans fought a battle here. Hariupriya. It is also compiled in Rigveda also. Okay, near the bank of river, Ravi river. Aryans fought a battle here. The name of the place sounds very similar to that of Harappa. Hariupriya and Harappa. That is very similar to those. These evidences led Wheeler to conclude that it was the Aryan invaders who destroyed the city of Harappa. R.E.M. Wheeler had given this description for the Harappan civilization destroying. Attractive through this theory is it is not acceptable to a host of scholars. They point out that the provisional date of decline of Harappan civilization is believed to be 1800 BC. The Aryans, on the other hand, are believed to have arrived here not earlier than a period around 1500 BC. This is also the similar time period of Rigvedic period also. At the present state of knowledge, it is difficult to revise either of these dates, and so the Harappans and the Aryans are unlikely to have met each other. In many cases, the big cities were already in a state of decay. This cannot be explained by the invasion hypothesis. Ecological imbalance theory of gradual decline. One more theory was given, like ecological imbalance. As nowadays it is also heading in India also, in other countries also. Ecological imbalance. Scholars like Fair Service try to explain the decay of Harappan civilization in the terms of problem of ecology. He computed the population of Harappan cities and worked out food requirements of townsmen. He also computed that the villages in these areas consume about 80% of their produce. They have consumed, okay, leaving about 20% for the market. If similar pattern of agriculture existed in the past, a city like Mohenjo-daro having a population of about 35,000 would require very large number of villages procuring food. These are the theories which we have discussed about the decline of Indus Valley civilization. These are the theories. R.E.M. Wheeler, Dayaram Sani, Rakhal Das Banerjee, who have given their description about Harappan civilization. What survived from Harappan civilization? Pashupati Shiva. You have listened about Pashupati Shiva? That is a form of Shivling. They have seen in excavation that there is one statue was found in excavation. Mother goddess, fire worship, sacrifice at Kalibangan and Lothal. These things have survived. What about the summary of this chapter is the discovery of Harappan civilization holds a very special significance for the study of Indian history. It altered the notions about the origins of Indian history and stretched it much further back as to put it at par with other oldest civilization of the world. Egypt civilization, Mesopotamian civilization. The discovery of Harappan civilization was a result mainly of archaeological sources, which the archaeologists have excavated at that particular villages, just like Harappa, just like Mohenjo-daro. These two were the main cities at that time. Kotadiji, Mohenjo-daro, Rakhigadi, etc. and so on. In this unit 5, we also saw the scholars have offered various theories of sudden decline of Harappa. As you have seen, gradually scholars have given up looking for causes of decline in Harappa. Focus is on understanding the late phases of Harappan civilization. This is looked into to expose the continuities of Harappan civilization, which might have survived in the flourishing agricultural communities of the time. No doubt, there have been certain characteristics of Harappan civilization which transcended down to the subsequent historic phase. Yes, in this class, we have studied about Unit 5 of BHIC 130, which is connected like history, and we have studied about Harappan civilization in this chapter, in this session. Okay, Harappan civilization, as you all know, the earliest civilization, the first urban settlement of Indian history. We have studied about this. We have studied a lot of points. I hope you understand all these points clearly. and you will solve the answers which you have been given in your exams. The most and main important question of this session is the decline of Harappan civilization, the urban planning of civilization, the guild system of Indus Valley civilization. These were the important questions of this chapter. Now, the end. This was written by Bhatia. Okay, thank you and have a nice day.